everyone. Thanks so much for joining me this evening. So today you're watching the Afterlife of Clothes, and I hope you have an awesome time with me. So today I'm going to cover approximately 3 things: how to assess secondhand clothing that you encounter in the wild, options for cleaning it, and options for repairing physical damage. I'm not going to go into step-by-step directions for everything during my presentation since my time is limited. So the goal is to give you a menu of options to choose from to increase your confidence in purchasing secondhand. I'll make a PDF of the links I mentioned available to you post-panel that you can access in the Bay Area K Discord. And of course, you'll be able to rewatch the video on the YouTube channel as well. I've made sure to leave time at the end of my panel for answering your questions. I do want to let everyone know my particular flavor of ADHD makes me really susceptible to interruptions. So I'm going to ask you if you can please hold questions until the end. Then I'll switch over and view comments, and my moderator is going to help me by highlighting your questions so that I can answer them and interact with you. So I really appreciate your understanding on that. Thank you very much. Before we get started, you may be wondering who I am. I go by Victorix. I run Mukashi no Sewing, a blog about history, fashion, and antiques. My historical focus is on the 1800s in Japan and the US and England, so roughly the late Edo period and the Victorian era. I restore and wear antique clothing as well as sew my own. And I've also been wearing Lolita fashion for many years. And I've also started taking kimono lessons from a licensed Kitsuke teacher last year, who's a licensed sensei from the Hakubi school. I speak and read Japanese, and I've loved Japanese fashion all my life. So I'm very excited to share my knowledge with you. I also want to briefly address what this panel isn't. Because the focus of this event, I'm keeping my examples mostly confined to Japanese fashion, specifically kimono and Lolita. Lots of what I'll discuss is applicable to a broad variety of secondhand and antique clothes, but I'll be sticking with J fashion generally. I do apologize, but my area of expertise does not lie in performing alterations for size or shape concerns, so I won't be able to speak to that particularly well. As I mentioned, it won't be all-inclusive due to time constraints. I hope you'll check out my blog for some other things I may only have time to briefly touch on, and it's definitely not definitive. Rain Dragon of the Lolita blog Crimson Reflections, as well as Ms. Mitsui, who runs the kimono restoration blog Silk and Bones, have lots of other ideas and tutorials. And the collective that runs the Lolita blog, Quills and Frills, does as well. So I urge you to check all of them out. All right, let's get started. Assessment. The first thing you'll want to do, ideally before you buy, is assess the garment. Finding out that there's damage after it's already in your possession isn't a whole lot of fun. So hopefully your seller has taken good proof pictures. The picture up here on the left is from the dress I'm wearing today. And I did in fact know about the damage before I purchased it. So things to ask yourself: what is the state of the piece? Is it stained or is it merely soiled? Is it missing an entire peplum or collar? Or is there just a section of lining mysteriously missing? Are there moth holes, snags, or full tears? Is it listed as having a vintage smell, which can be anything from mothballs to bodily odors? Or does it come from the home of a smoker? Understanding the full state of the garment will help you make proper decisions. So don't delude yourself at this stage. It's far better to pass on something that's outside of your wheelhouse than to spend your money on a project that will sit on a shelf for years just making you sad. Ask me how I know. Another question to ask yourself is, what is the value of the piece? Personally, I take into consideration both historical as well as monetary value at this point. Is this a garment you'll be wearing, or simply something you intend to preserve or display for an unusual quality or particular beauty? For Lolita, you can check past auctions on Lace Market to get an idea of how often this comes up and for how much. If the dress is particularly rare, it might be worth pouncing on one with moderate to severe damage. With antique garments, you can look to see if there are many similar pieces for sale. For example, I purchased an Edo period traveling coat about a year ago, and I feel confident in altering it and wearing it because there are a lot of similar pieces for sale at a similar price point. Typically, this indicates that it doesn't have deep historical significance, so I can proceed with confidence. However, I did recently inherit a full handmade Victorian ball gown from a friend, and I absolutely sent pictures of it to a docent at a local historical museum before I ever touched it. Only once they assured me that it was beautiful but not museum worthy, then I did begin restoration work. Personally, I have no issue with wearing antique garments as long as there's not significant historical meaning or value. I think it's better to give clothes a second life than for them to languish in a box or attic. But that's just my own opinion, so I won't be offended if you're horrified at the idea of wearing a 150-year-old dress out and about. Next, I consider my desired outcome, as well as my comfort level with failure. Is it my goal to return the garment to a pristine state? That's going to take a lot more work and have a much tighter margin for failure. Is it just to be able to wear it? That'll be a lot easier and has a wider scope of options. And I always have to ask myself, will I be devastated if my work renders the garment unwearable? This varies wildly from piece to piece. So, for example, I don't actually mind too much if I mess up that Edo period coat I mentioned earlier. It's a great coat, but I'm also using it to teach myself a wide variety of techniques. So it's okay in the end if it doesn't turn out. Conversely, I just finished cleaning the lace on this velveteen sundress JSK from 1999 by Meta, and I would have been crushed if I damaged it in any way during the cleaning process. So I really took my time. It helps to look at source material if available to compare your piece to the original and see what restoration will entail. For older Lolita, Gothic and Lolita Bibles are a really great source. Finally, before getting excited and smashing by it now, I consider my constraints. How much time do I have to work on this project? How much space will it take up in my house? How much money can I afford to put into it? And how much energy and mental bandwidth do I have? If you have a physical disability, please take that into account. I bought a dress a while back that literally only needed a good washing. No problem. Whereas fixing a Meiji era kimono required sourcing and purchasing red silk to repair the lining, which was a little bit more of an investment. This sundress, cleaning the lace doesn't sound so bad, but it pushed my sensory processing issues into overdrive, and I couldn't do more than an hour of work at a time. And of course, what are your skills and abilities? If you don't know how to sew and you don't want to learn, that's totally fine. Just probably think twice about picking up a garment with mending needs. So now that you've assessed your garment, let's talk about cleaning. Personally, I'm a big fan of hand washing. There are tons of good guides to washing Lolita, both in blog and video form. There's a few on screen, and there'll be a few in the PDF as well. Generally, I recommend starting with a spot test in an inconspicuous place like a waist tie, and see if water, and then water in your cleaning substance of choice, will cause the dyes to run. With this velveteen dress, you can see I tested it against a white paper towel so that I could see very quickly if any dye was running for the hills. If your dyes do run, don't panic. Synthropol is a great cleaner. It is specifically made to remove fugitive dyes from fabric and then keep those dyes in suspension in the water rather than sinking back into your garment. So it's total, yes, wash your clothes, please. You can also use color catchers, which are made to attract loose dye in the water and absorb it to themselves rather than releasing it back into the garment. I've actually read a lot of both pro and con articles on color catchers, but anecdotally, a lot of Lolitas I know have really good luck with them, particularly with red dyes. Then you can either put your dress in a pillowcase and gently machine wash cold, or dunk it in your bathtub or a small hand washing tub full of cool soapy water and clean it by hand. Don't forget to remove any pins or brooches first. Cool or cold water is the best place to start your wash, as hot water actually sets some stains permanently. Blood and toothpaste stains in particular should be washed exclusively in cold water. Tomato sauce, chocolate, sweat, mud, and wine like a cold wash followed by a hot wash. And lipstick stains and grass stains prefer a hot wash to start. However, without tasting your stain, which I really don't advise, it may be very difficult to determine its origin on an older piece of clothing, so starting cold is the best way to go. Most Lolita clothes are best left on towels to dry out a bit before hanging up to dry the rest of the way. This keeps the weight from tearing anything. Wet cotton is up to 4 times heavier wet than dry. It's really heavy, so let that dry out a little first. And don't drape your garment over anything made of wood or use a wooden hanger when it's wet. Wood can stain even if it's unfinished. I also prefer to avoid the dryer for a variety of reasons. One is that heat drying, just like washing in hot water, can set some stains permanently. So if you've had any colors bleed or if there's any stains that haven't come out yet, you absolutely want to avoid the dryer. Yeah, you could tumble dry, I guess. Why take the risk? Just air dry to be safe. Much better. With kimono and other antique silk garments, you should really avoid submersing them in water as a finished garment. Traditionally, they're completely disassembled, specially washed, and then resewn. This keeps the lining and the outer shell from shrinking or changing shape at different rates from each other. Most reputable dry cleaners in the US that I've spoken with won't take them either, so you're probably stuck with spot clean only. Some types of fabric like velvet or velveteen may be best served with dry cleaning. You can hand wash, just know that you'll have to brush the pile, which is the fuzziness, back into shape. As far as smells go, they don't always come out in the wash right away. Smoke can be particularly bad if you have a sensitivity, and hanging outdoors, ideally not directly in the sun, is your first line of defense. For basic bodily odors that linger after washing, get a spray bottle and gently mist your garment with a cheap, high-proof alcohol like vodka or Everclear. The alcohol content causes the moisture to evaporate quickly so it won't stain your garment, and it will kill odor-causing bacteria. However, sometimes if the scent is particularly bad, you'll have to work on it a little more. Let me tell you a horror story for Grandma Rye. The stanky blouse of legend. I purchased this blouse secondhand and was told, quote, that it had been in their closet for a while, so I might want to wash it when it arrived. This was dramatically underselling the absolutely terrifying BO it was suffused with. I desperately wanted this blouse though. I love stripes and I love black and white. So I set to work. I started with hand washing it, then laid it on a towel. Then I made a paste of baking soda and water, covered the entire blouse with it, and let it sit for 30 minutes. Then I rinsed it let it soak in salt water for 30 minutes, rinsed it, let it soak with detergent for another 30 minutes, and finally hung it out to dry in the backyard, in the sun in this case, since I knew that the sun wouldn't damage the polyester chiffon or its dye. I had to do this literally 5 times. It was so bad. But the blouse is now clean and fresh, and it's a beloved part of my wardrobe. So this is something in general to be aware of when cleaning odors and stains. It takes time. Antique clothes have antique stains, and a single run through the wash won't always do the trick. So patience is definitely key. And maybe think twice about clothes that have been in someone's closet for a while. So let's talk a little bit about stains. Stains can have a wide variety of sources, so I keep a wide variety of stain removers in my arsenal. OxiClean is a good one for freshening up dingy whites. Personally, my luck hasn't been great with it for stains, and I prefer vintage textile soak, which has never failed to remove a large variety of stains as well as turn yellowed garments white again. Unlike OxiClean, it doesn't require activation in hot water, which is another nice benefit. On the flip side, it's better for natural fibers like silk, cotton, and linen. With my Edo coat, you can see the forbidden soup on the right. I actually thought the entire coat was a cotton hemp blend, so I dropped it right in a tub of water. It turned out that the collar that I thought was brown cotton was actually golden yellow silk. It just hadn't been washed in about 200 years. Luckily, no harm done. The soap cleaned it right up and it dried just fine. The sizing was washed away, but it wouldn't have been a factor at this point anyway, so no big deal. I really like Nellie's Wow Stick for spot cleaning. It's how I clean the lace on this dress. You just need to dampen the stain, rub the stick on it, and then soap it up and scrub and rinse it clean. Grandma's Secret Spot Remover is also really great for spot cleaning. It got rid of most of the soy sauce stains on this antique wool kimono for me. You just saturate the stain with it, let it sit for about half an hour, and then soap it up and rinse it out. It's pretty similar to the Wow Stick, but in liquid form. Some things are just easier to wash with one or the other. And again, don't despair if the stain doesn't come out the first time. You may have to treat them a couple of times. Pretty sure these were soy sauce, given the splatter pattern on them. I don't want to steal her thunder because it's not my method, but Silken Bones has a really great tutorial on using a solution of distilled white vinegar and water to remove stains from silk. She has a great tutorial directory link at the top of her page, and you can follow her method that she has posted there. But it's really great for getting especially water spots out of silk. So I'm a big fan of it. One thing to really note if you're soaking clothes in your tub is to ensure before you do that no cleaning product is in your tub. So like your scrubbing bubbles or whatever. Most bathroom cleaning products contain chlorine, which can absolutely damage your clothes. So if I'm going to use my tub, I spray it like normal. Then I grab a physical cleanser like Bon Ami and scrub again. And then I just rinse and rinse and rinse until I'm certain there's no residue left. This prevents any bad interactions with either my detergent or my textiles. Please note that if you have a very old garment and it's heavy, just lifting it out of the tub can damage it. The way around this is to put a cotton bed sheet underneath and lift it out like a weird stork delivering a dress baby. Then you can maneuver it onto towels to start blotting up water. Please don't wring out your garments, but rather press them between layers of towels. Basically, the Hitchhiker's Guide was right, and you should always have a towel. I have a huge stack of old towels from the thrift store that I use for garment drying, dog drying, etc. I do want to mention there are a couple of stains that you probably want to avoid entirely. 2 off the top of my head are rust and mold. Rust sometimes can be removed with a lemon juice solution, but in my experience, the best option is to either pass on it or just be prepared to cover them up. As far as mold goes, I live in the Pacific Northwest, and mold is 100% a deal breaker for me because it can quickly spread in my humid environment. Theoretically, you can kill it with vinegar treatments, but for me, there's always the lingering fear that I didn't get every spore and that the rest of my wardrobe will end up moldy. And the spots left behind are difficult to remove as well. I learned this the hard way when I took a risk on a lovely green Howry with some tiny mold spots. I wore it for a short season, then put it away in Tatoshi paper. When I removed it the next year, the entire garment was covered in mold, and I had to throw it and the paper away. Big sad. So mold, I would pass on. Okay, enough about cleaning. Let's talk about damage. Snags, of course, can be carefully repaired from the opposite side with a fine pin or needle by gently tugging the displaced strands back into position. Tears in fabric can be either stitched closed or patched, depending on the state of the fabric. Hand sewing is usually better than machine sewing for repairs, as you can be more deliberate and careful with fraying portions. It can be difficult to find matching fabric for things that are entirely missing. When I relined my antique kimono, I searched for weeks and finally had to settle for a modern silk in the right color, but the wrong weight. Luckily, it's a lining fabric, so it doesn't affect the drape of the garment too badly, but I did have to compromise. Moth holes or similar insect damage can usually be darned just like you would with socks. You can also use this method for snags that have a tear component. Just nudge the threads back into place and then weave a supporting cover in with the fabric. There's a really tremendous feature on NHK World in English that covers kaketsugi, which is invisible mending. It's the pro version of this technique. I've linked it in the PDF, and it's an amazing watch. I've used this method to mend uniforms for people in my dojo. It's time consuming, but looks really good when you're done. When all else fails, I'm a huge fan of covering up stains and other small damaged areas. This wool kimono that I mentioned previously had a stain on the collar that, while lightened by my treatments, could not be entirely removed. So I embroidered wisteria flowers over it. It's now the pride of my collection. It gets comments whenever I wear it. You can applique a patch over a stain or small hole, or even just put a cute pin or brooch over it. This dress had a little bit of a stain that couldn't come out, and so I just added some extra ribbon to cover it. No problem, now you can't see. You can add similar embellishments to other parts of the garment to make it look natural as well. I find it a really fun way to fix a damaged or stained garment because it makes it my own. One thing I typically advise against is dyeing garments that you didn't make yourself unless you are very unattached to the outcome. The reason is that different textiles require very different dye methods. So if your dress is cotton, but the manufacturer used polyester thread, you might dye the dress, but the thread will stay the original color. There's a really great article from a conference in Portugal in 2017 about this. To briefly summarize, cotton is dyed at alkaline conditions between 60 and 80 degrees Celsius, whereas polyester is dyed using dispersed dyes in an acidic medium at 120 to 130 degrees Celsius. So is your fabric a cotton poly blend? Better know its exact makeup before you start dyeing. Your best bet, if you do decide to go for it, is remove all of the trim first, so the lace, etc., before you start the process, then reattach it afterwards. With damaged lace, it's going to depend on what kind of lace it is and what the damage is. Rachel or net lace can be stabilized with mesh behind it to bind the pieces back into place if it's just torn. Cluny and other kinds of woven lace are usually thick enough you can basically weave it back together and stabilize it against itself. It's pretty hard to match lace, particularly on older clothes. So if it's really damaged, I usually just remove all of it and replace it with all new lace. I've had very good luck on Etsy for buying small amounts of various laces, as well as Taobao, Mercari, and Rakuten. Just like with stains, there are a couple types of damage that I recommend you avoid. The one that's more likely in Lolita or older J fashion is devil dust. As time passes, some early synthetic materials become unstable and spontaneously degrade, crumbling into a sticky, gritty dust. It's most common in foam padding and linings and can also be found in hats and handbags. The Plastics Historical Society says that there are 4 plastics that are particularly problematic. They are cellulose acetate, cellulose nitrate, polyvinyl chloride, aka PVC, and polyurethane. Objects made of these materials should be identified and managed separately according to their special needs. The onset of degradation is unpredictable and rapid. It can manifest itself in an advanced state apparently almost overnight. It is irreversible and unstoppable. The best that can be achieved is to slow down the process. The worst part is degradation products from objects can contaminate other objects in the vicinity. So if you have a garment showing any signs of this type of degradation, you should immediately separate it from the rest of your collection, as it cannot be reversed or stopped. If you see this on a garment before buying it, don't buy it. It's not worth it. It's just going to fall apart and possibly make other garments in your collection do the same. So big no. Less common in Lolita, but often seen in antique kimono or other antique dresses, is shattered silk. Shattered silk doesn't contaminate other garments like devil dust, but is equally unfixable, irreversible, and progressive. There are several causes, but the most common is iron salts in dyes that were used in the early industrial era. As time goes on, they become like little shards of glass that eventually slice right through threads that have been weakened by the passing of years. Garments with shatter cannot be worn. It will cause further stress on their weakened fabric and will likely destroy them. If you want to display them, my best advice is to stabilize the fabric with a mesh backing to hold the pieces together and avoid putting more strain on the rest of the garment. Like devil dust, shatter can happen literally overnight, and if you see a garment with this type of damage, it's probably good to avoid it. Last but not least, let's talk about missing pieces. You might not even care that a piece is missing, or you might obsess over returning a garment to pristine original condition. You do have plenty of options though. Just like with stains, you can make creative use of appliques, brooches, or ribbons to cover up missing accessories. I'm a huge fan of Pop Parade on Store Envy and Red Cat Studios and Wax Poetic Shop on Etsy. All of them make incredible brooches and rosettes that will match your dresses and cover up any missing pieces. I've bought from all 3 of them and been really happy with the results. When replacing things, as I mentioned, it can be terribly difficult to find exact matches in fabric or lace. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. For example, my Velveteen Princess JSK from Meta was missing its neckties. Just sourcing velveteen is a massive headache, not to mention sewing it. So I found double-sided velvet ribbon that was a perfect color match and added buttonholes. Voila, new neckties. I also found one of my dream dresses, the Milky Chan the Fawn necklace JSK in white, but it was missing its waist ties. You guys, I tried so many options for replacement fabric. I tried printing things on spoon flour, scanning, all sorts of, nothing worked. It all looked super weird. Then my husband pointed out that the problem was a near match looks weird, but a complementary color would look totally natural. So I found a cotton in pink that matched the print color and sewed my new ties from that. It totally looks intentional. Currently, I'm replacing the missing detachable sleeves from this baby blouse that I bought. I couldn't duplicate the embroidered lace on the collar precisely, so I found two similar looking laces on Rakuten that I'm going to layer to give a similar effect. I'm counting on the distance between my wrists and the neckline to hide any of the differences. In conclusion, I have talked a whole lot today about assessing secondhand garments, cleaning them, and ways to repair or replace damaged or missing pieces. I hope that some of the things I've mentioned will help you from being spooked by these things in the future. Thank you all so much for your patient attention, and if you have any questions or comments, I would be super happy to answer what I can. Also, I'm scrolling back through. Yes, learning embroidery is extremely helpful. You can cover so many problems. It's really easy. It really is. Basic, I'm very basic with my embroidery. And yeah, even just one or two stitches can help you cover a wide variety of things. Ooh, how to get diluted Epson printer ink out of silk. Ink is really tough. I would definitely start by using Becky Mitsui's diluted vinegar technique, and I'll pop it in chat here. It's a very long link. Maybe I can, ooh, I'm not sure how to comment. I'm really sorry. I'll pop it in private chat, and maybe my moderator can pop it in there. The reason I would start with that is because, thank you, part of what makes this technique work is you're literally washing the stain out of the fabric. Silk likes an acidic environment, so the vinegar doesn't damage it, and you literally just keep drenching it over and over and almost rinsing it out. But because the silk likes the acid and a lot of stains don't, it can weaken the bond. So I would start with that. She also has one that uses glycerin as well that I've had pretty good luck with. So give that a shot. It takes time. That's my only warning is, like, you'll do it, and I mean, you could be working on it for a couple of hours. I usually do it over a few days. But she gets some incredibly antique stains. Like me, she buys kimono that are pre-war a lot, and has incredible results with, I'm not affiliate, I'm just a huge fan of hers. So yeah, I would start with that. Okay, holes in netting. What would I do for holes in netting? I have done both. So sometimes it's better just to replace the entire thing. Netting is really susceptible to high heat, and I've seen netting damaged by ironing, like melting a hole in it, or by even steaming it too high, depending on the makeup. So it really depends on where it is. If it's a small hole, I would probably get a similar color of netting and just tack it either behind or in front, kind of depending on which you prefer, over the original, just stabilize it. Just because sometimes, like, especially if it's in the ruffle of a dress, it can really, oh yeah, oh, yeah. I have some chiffon that I've had that happen to. If it's in a blouse, like if it's in something that's going to be covered by a JSK, I would just stabilize it with a piece of fabric around it. Otherwise, you probably are better off like cutting the damaged section out and like weaving a fresh section in. Depends on the net too. Like if it's a woven, like kind of your standard woven net, maybe it's pretty easy to find a similar type. But if it's like old, like baby lace or something like that, you're better off just stabilizing it. Runs in sheer or thin tights that are too big for nail polish. Yeah. Oh, I have, let me see. You're very welcome. I hope it works. Damage from zippers is so awful. I have used hairspray to stabilize them. And then, and it depends on where the run is, right? Like some you may just be better off turning them into a more gothic look. Hairspray can stabilize the fibers and keep them from unraveling further. I often prefer to, and this is going to sound very extreme, the problem is they're going to want to keep running. And so hairspray stabilizes them, especially if you're on the run. If you keep it, my hair is very short naturally, so I don't keep any in my purse. But if I did, you can spray it really quick and it'll stop it in the moment. It stiffens all the fibers up. You can very gently burn basically around the hole to melt everything to keep it from further unraveling. The best tool for that is actually, I guess you could heat like a pin or like something. I use actually a wood burning tool set super low and just use it to like very quickly sear all the little things, and that'll stabilize and so it won't keep running. Hard to repair. You can sew like mesh over it or try to like stitch it together if it's not in a spot that's under tension. But the main thing with runs is to stop them from running further. And since most thinner sheer tights are made from some kind of plastic fabric, some kind of polyester, nylon, even rayon, you can melt them to keep it from continuing to go south. You're welcome. I hope it works. It's so tough when a pair of tights that you love gets damaged. If it's in the toe, you could just, stitch it shut. I've definitely done that with some OTKs before, but it can be a little harder on the parts that are around your, calves or thigh. Great questions, everybody. I feel like I'm on an interview. Ask my greatest strength and greatest weakness next. Have I ever set something on fire? Ribbon all the time. I am constantly irresponsibly using a candle flame to melt a ribbon. And then going, Armpit stink and polyester. Oh, yes. So my Stinky Blouse of Legend, definitely bad news. It's a poly chiffon, one of the hardest things to clean. Yes. So you definitely want to hit it with a barrage. I really like a paste of baking soda. You can also add vinegar and it'll give you like a volcano, like when you were science fair at 5. So be careful. I was very surprised by the salt soak that I did. It was probably the thing that did the best to get the stank out of my striped blouse. So literally just basin of water, and I just put in salt until it tasted salty, and then soaked it for about 30 minutes as part of my regimen. Salt kills. It's an antibiotic, but it's a disinfectant. It does have antibacterial properties. That's why it's used in food preservation, right? So it will help kill some of those. You can also, it really helps if it is a fabric that's not going to be, or it's like a color that's not going to be sun damaged. Hanging in sunlight with polyester fabrics actually is really good. Sun is a tremendous disinfectant. I hit it with a barrage. I did a paste of baking soda, then I salt soaked it, then I washed in detergent, and then I hung it in the sun just over and over and over. I also have this is going to sound very odd, but there is a company that does soaps, but also sprays. Their original use was for fursuits. I use it for my martial arts gear because I need something that really kills scent on something that I can't wash all the time. Blueberry Kitten soaps, again, I'm not affiliated. I'm just a huge fan, and many of the people in my dojo are as well. They have sprays. I know. And if you spray your blouse after wearing it, it's really high alcohol content and will help kill those bacteria before they can kind of take hold. If you're sensitive to scents, just be aware these are highly scented, so use at your own risk. But they're really great for things like I have hakama that I can't wash all the time or whatever, and it keeps them very fresh. So I like them because it's a really high isopropyl alcohol content instead of water, so it kills the bacteria. Exactly. Yeah. Salt and sunlight. I was just thinking about like medieval people. You basically wash it in the river and throw it on the riverbank, and that's how your clothes get washed. So it really does help though. Persevere you too can one day join me talking about your stanky blouses and how you clean them. Ooh, is there a cleaning or laundry product I would warn people away from? That's a very interesting question. I personally have not had very good luck with OxyClean. I know lots of people do though. So I don't want to be like, oh, I hate it. It will ruin your life. I find it really difficult to use because you have to activate it in super hot water. And in my experience, it does tend to lift dyes. Yes, that exactly right. So I actually tried it on my red Velveteen Princess JSK. I luckily tried it on a neck ruffle that was detachable first, and it noticeably faded the red compared to the rest of it. So I'm not a huge fan of OxyClean for colored garments. I think for like a pure white blouse or like white socks, that might be its wheelhouse, but haven't had great luck with it with colored products. Oh, and chlorine bleach. Please don't use chlorine bleach on your clothes. It damages them really badly. Yes, is exactly the way that we get rid of ghosts is the way that we get rid of stank. Bell, book, and candle. Throw your salt. Get out of there. Yeah. Please avoid chlorine bleach, though. I use a chlorine-free bleach from the laundress that has worked really well for me in just general cleaning. They're kind of bougie. I don't. But it has worked out pretty well for me. Oh yeah, made the white on the JSK pink. Rain Dragon on Crimson Reflections has a tremendous guide to dealing with dyes that have bled. So you can usually get it out. I think yeah, she has a whole guide to it. It's really, really good. So you can, if you haven't washed it in hot water, you typically can lift those fugitive dyes back out. Synthropol might be a good place to start because it will cause them to lift back out since it's not its natural home. And then keep them in suspension while you rinse the dress. So depending on how aggressive you're willing to get with it, you can also try spot cleaning it in those. Just follow her guide. It's really good. Or you can just try Synthropol on the whole thing. My wig, this is from Maple Wigs. It's a Japanese company that does old school style wigs, and I'm a big fan. I have it. There's long versions too. I have it in blonde. They're really comfortable. My hair is very short, so I can't speak to if you have a lot of hair, if it is super comfortable underneath, but I would say that the wig cap is pretty average in size. Thank you, keeping my moderator very busy with links. Thank you for helping me out. I do believe you'll need a shopping service. I don't think they ship overseas by themselves, but you can use just a normal, like you don't have to have a personal shopping service. Anything that can buy from a website will do. Yeah, big fan. And the ringlets stay really well. Like, I've had this for almost a year and it still looks, I think looks good. We have about 9 minutes left. Any other questions I can answer for you folks? I'll see if I can try to track down the Rain Dragon post. The links seem wonky. Yeah, interesting. Let me see. I know there is a brand washing directory and that might link to it. Let me take a look. Yes, here we go. What to do if the dye in a dress bleeds. Let me pop that over to you. Oh, yes. That's a really great question. So spot cleaning is your friend. Another thing that you can do is, so I wear undershirts when I wear my Lolita and my kimono. And again, I promise I'm not affiliated with any of these people. I make no money from sharing these links. So I wear Numi undershirts. And this way I can just pop the undershirt into the wash with my normal clothes and not have to do a whole hand washing experience on my Lolita clothes or deal with figuring out how to clean my kimono, which I dread the day. Prevention is worth an ounce, ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure on cleaning. Definitely spot cleaning when you can. Yes, exactly. Modern shimmies. A lot of my tips come from my historical garment wear. So it does really help. Obviously, when it's really hot out, sometimes you're just going to sweat through. But typically, I would say I maybe have to wash my JSKs like once every 3 or 4 times of wearing them, which is, saves a lot of water because I do hand wash them. Yeah. Right. I mean, why mess with something that's worked for 1600 years or whatever. I am very susceptible to overheating, so it does hurt in the hot weather. I pick my spots, but it definitely, especially in the winter, up here in the Northwest, it helps a lot. Great question. Actually, I feel that's something I probably should have addressed before, so I appreciate you bringing that up. Good to be environmentally conscious. Yes, hanging out to dry. Kimono too. Get one of those big kimono hangers if you have those, and it really just airing it out for a few days. I hang my Lolita dresses up just in a hallway. Spook the dogs walking through. Yeah, definitely. Before it goes in the closet, it needs to be fresh. This is very important. Yes, thank you. There are many different types of undershirts. I just like Numi. They're good. Super last call, 5 minutes left. I'm gonna drink some water. Thank you. I really appreciate you saying so. You folks all asked such wonderful questions, and you listened to my info dump so patiently and kindly. So thank you all very much. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your time at Grammari Afterlife. It's been an honor to be a part of it. Thank you. I think about this sort of stuff a lot. This is my weird hobby. I like to wear the clothes, but really I spend most of my time cleaning and fixing them. So glad that the weird ways I have fun can be useful. Yes. In conclusion, please wash your clothes. Love, Victorix. Thank you guys all again. Have a wonderful time at the rest of the show. If you're in the Bay Area K Discord, I'll be popping a PDF with a lot of the links that I mentioned into that as well. So in case you missed something, I'll make sure it gets into there so you can.
Okay, I ended it. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you saw my message.
I just did. No, I was like, oh, now there's other things. Oh, thank you so much for your help.
Oh, I didn't end it. Hi everybody.